Hello there and welcome to Black Jackal Gaming. We're going to take a look at the Anvil Siege Force today, which is the Imperial Fists Detachment for Codex Space Marines. The detachment rule benefits all your units from standing still by giving them the heavy keyword. The war gear is mainly there for ranged attacks and a bit of durability. There's lots of stratagems there to boost your shooting. There's a couple of stratagems there that give you a little bit of movement and OC shenanigans. There's no bonuses to melee in this detachment. There's a really good piece of war gear you can put on the Apothecary Biologist, which makes them really good. The detachment is really strong for infantry and tanks. The only ones not really benefiting, again, is melee units. The detachment rule is called Shield of the Imperium. This gives all ranged weapons the heavy keyword, and if you already have the heavy keyword, then if you remain stationary, you get +1 to the wound roll. This basically means that any ranged units in your army, whether it's your strength 4 weapons or it's your harder hitting weapons such as las cannons, they're all going to benefit from this wound. Now the war gear is quite tasty in parts. The first one is the Indomitable Fury. This is for Gravis only models. So when this model is first destroyed, it can stand back up on full wounds on a roll of 2+. It cannot stand back up in engagement range, but it does have to stand up as close to possible as where it died. So if it dies on an objective, you're pretty much going to try and still keep this model on the objective to try and still hold on to it. So the next one, Fleet Commander, isn't a great war gear. You're unlikely to ever take it really. It's for captain models only. So what this allows you to do at the start of a shooting phase, you select one part of the battlefield, and then in your next shooting phase you draw a 12-inch line in between that spot and another spot. Any models or units that are touched by this line on a d6 on a roll of 3+, you can do d3 mortal wounds to each unit. GW are massive fans of this type of stratagem or war gear. They have been for a couple of editions now, but they always fail to make it takeable. It's always way too expensive or way too fiddly and easy to just avoid as the opponent. It's really not worth your while taking. Next up we have the Stoic Defender. So if you have this model leading a unit, the unit gains 6+ funeral pain when they're on a controlled objective. So a little bit of a limitation there. But if you are on an objective and you're battle shocked, you only halve your OC rather than going down to 0 OC. So it just allows you to hold on to your objectives in battlefield or the midfield a little bit longer than you necessarily would. And finally we have Architect of War. When this is equipped to a model in a unit, the unit ignores benefits of cover on ranged attacks. So on to the stratagems for the Anvil Siege Force. First up is the standard Armor Contempt, which is a battle tactic. This reduces incoming AP by 1 in the shooting or fight phase. Next we have the Rigid Discipline. This is a strategic ploy stratagem. At the end of the fight phase, you can fall back up to 6 inches, but you must wholly end this movement within your deployment zone or within range of an objective. So this is quite nice if you do want to try and drop back and shoot again next turn. So if it's your opponent's turn, you can fall back, stay on the objective, and then open up onto that unit and try and wipe it off the objective. Then we have Not One Step Back, which is strategic ploy. In your command phase, you select one unit, and until the end of the turn, they have twice as much OC as they would normally, but they must remain stationary. Now this is a bit open to interpretation, where do they have the OC until they no longer remain stationary, or is it they have to have remained stationary to have the OC for the entire turn? So if you were to move later on, would you lose the OC that could have been beneficial to you at the start of the battle round? Then we have Not a Threat Too Great, which is a battle tactic. In your shooting phase, you can re-roll your ranged wound rolls against any monster or vehicle. So this is quite nice if you have Officer Moment onto a really tough Tyrannid or maybe a Titan or something like that, and this just gives you the ability just to make sure you're putting in as much damage onto their saves as possible to try and take out the target. Then we have Battle Drill Recall, which is a great tactic. This is battle tactic. In your shooting phase, until the end of the phase, the unit you've selected gains the Sustained Hit 1 keyword. Now, if they're stationary, they also get critical hits on a 5+. So if you do have, say, a lieutenant with this unit, you'll be going to get sustained hits 1 and lethal hits on that 5+. Then we have Hail of Vengeance, which is strategic ploy. Now, in your opponent's shooting phase, if one of your units has suffered one or more models that have been destroyed, they can return fire on this unit and only this unit, as long as it's an eligible target, and you can shoot as if it's the shooting phase. This is an okay tactic, but the problem with it is that it's 2 CP. If it was the fact that you could just shoot at any model, or if it was just any of your units that have been hit rather than had a model destroyed, it might be a little bit more beneficial, but being 2 CP is a little bit too much on the expensive side to really be that beneficial. So what buffs and combos can you get using this detachment? Basically every range data sheet in Space Marines will gain benefits from this, because you are going to gain the heavy keyword, and if you already have the heavy keyword, then you're going to get +1 to wound when you're stationary. Your melee units are going to get a benefit from it, so the pistols are going to have the heavy keyword. Whether that's going to come up that often, it really depends how you're going to use these melee units, whether they're going to be more an early game, push them forward to try and take objectives or kill units, or they're going to be more of a counterpunch where you might really get more pistol shots off. The Apothecary Biologist is really good with Indomitable Fury, because when he's in a unit, if it dies via melee, he goes up to objective secure 9, which is really high. And then if you have Indomitable Fury on him, if he dies on a 2+, you stand him back up on that objective, and he's now sitting there on 9 objective control, which is very hard to remove him from, because he's got 4 wounds again, and he's toughness 6. So he's a really good unit to have if you're taking them with your Boltstorm Aggressors or even Heavy Intercessors, just to basically say, this objective's mine, and you're going to really have trouble taking it from me, even if you kill me. And then we've got units such as Hellblasters and Eradicators, any units that you can basically put in an impulsor to make use of their firing deck rule. So you've got 6 models that can fire using this rule. Because these guys already come with the heavy keyword, then +1 to wound if the impulsor remains stationary. So you can move the impulsor into the midfield and relatively covered, waiting for units to move into your firing lanes or onto objectives, where then you can really open up on them with these hitting on 2s and wounding on generally 2s and 3s. Then we've got the Boltstorm Aggressors, which are fantastic in this detachment, because they now come with the heavy keyword and twin linked. So if they're stationary, they're hit on 2s and they're re-rolling wounds. You add the Biologist into this and they get lethal hits on top of this. And then if you're using the Battle Drill stratagem, they're then getting sustained hits 1. So if they're stationary, they're going to be hitting on 2s, re-rolling wounds, and critical hits of 5s to hit. They're going to be getting sustained hits 1 and lethal hits as well. So this is really good for these guys, because not only do they have the Boltstorm Gauntlets, they also have the Firestorm Grenade Launchers as well, which comes with the Blast keyword. So if you're against anything such as Necrons or Guard, any toughness 3, toughness 4, 1 wound units, these guys are really going to tear into them and just wipe them out. And then as well as that, you have the melee capability with them as well. Then you've got units such as Eliminators, which probably touch on the expensive side, and only being able to take 3 models in unit is an issue. But these guys with the heavy keyword, they're already hitting on 2s of the stationary, and you really want them stationary so they're hitting on 2s, because they've only got the 3 shots, but then the +1 to wound. And if you put them in terrain where they're 5 inches or over, they're going to get the plunging fire ability, which then allows them to add 1 AP to all of their attacks. So if you've got the precision snipers, which generally you're going to be taking them with, they're then at -3 AP, and it's devastating wounds on top of that as well. And it's 3 damage a pop, so it's quite nice. And then if you take the Las Fusel, then at -4 AP. So unless they've got an invulnerability save, you're knocking everyone off of the saves and going straight through to your damage. If you throw in a Phobos Leader with them and give them the Stoic Defender, they're going to be getting the lethal hits from the Phobos Lieutenant, as well as a Feel No Pain if they're on an objective. So if you can stack all these together, the hit on 2s, the lethal hits, the +1 to wound, the additional AP, and they're on the objective for the feel no pain, and they come with stealth, so they're -1 to hit. It's going to be really tough to move these guys, and they're going to be able to do some consistent damage and try and really target the leaders of the opposition just to knock off their buffs. And then we got the Desolation Marines, which are really expensive now. They already ignore most indirect penalties, which is one of the reasons why they're so expensive. But they now, so they already get the +1 to hit on some of their abilities, such as the Super Crack and Super Frag, but all the other weapons are now +1 to hit when they're stationary. And the Super Crack and Frag are now +1 to wound as well. So not only are they ignoring the indirect penalties to your ballistic skill, they ignore cover, they're hitting on 2s, and the really hard hitting weapons are then +1 to wound. So these guys are really going to have to be able to crank out the amount of damage they can do whilst in this detachment. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any comments, then pop them below in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit the like button, as it greatly helps the channel. Hit the subscribe button to see any future Warhammer content. Take it easy, and see you next time for more grim darkness from the 41st millennium.